Good evening, sailors, and thank you for joining us live on the Starboard Portal with match racing experts Liz Baylis, Pearson Potts, and Nicole Brault, who will discuss some of the best ways you can get involved in match racing. Tonight's live session will be moderated by Bridget Grobel. If you're enjoying the Starboard Portal, please support our efforts to build a community of active, engaged sailors by purchasing or renewing a U.S. Sailing membership. We have a lot of great content coming up on the schedule, and thanks to U.S. Sailing members, we're able to adapt and evolve to better serve sailors with content like this. Visit us at mem.ussailing.org to join or renew your U.S. Sailing membership today. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's program. Match racers, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Grobel. I'll be your host tonight. I'm here with Pearson Potts, Nicole Breault, and Liz Baylis, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Nicole, go first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Brault, and I'm hailing to you from my home in San Francisco. And I have been match racing since, I guess, 2009. And I love the game. It's an adrenaline rush. And I've been fortunate to build a strong team, and we've been pretty competitive over the last few years. Looking forward to the next opportunity to play.
Thanks, Nicole. Liz, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. I'm Liz Baylis, and I currently live just up the road from Nicole in San Rafael, California. And so what brings me to this panel? I guess it's because I'm currently the executive director of the Women's International Match Racing Association, or WIMRA, and I've been in that role for about 15 years. And along that way, I've had roles with committees within World Sailing, U.S. Sailing, almost always focused on match racing. And I guess I've done a bit of sailing too. I've been fortunate enough to win a world championship in match racing as a skipper, along with a great team back early in this century in 2002, as well as winning a couple of U.S. women's national championships like Nicole did. And I've had the opportunity to race on an America's Cup team with America True, as well as being an umpire in the America's Cup. So as you can get it, there's a bit of a theme there. I've been a match racer since way, way, way back when. I started by crewing and then skippering, and now I'm mostly coaching and organizing races for other people so that they have the chance to participate in the sport that I love. And I think you'll see that theme on this whole group, because we all love what we're doing in match racing.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, Pearson, take it away.
Thank you, Bridget, for having me. It's a pleasure to be on here. My name is Pearson Potts. I'm currently hailing from Newport, Rhode Island. I am the three-time U.S. Match Racing champion for the past 3 years that we've held it. I'm also the U.S. Match Racing chairman, and it's great to be here. But before we really kick into gears here tonight, I want to show a video. And if this doesn't fire you up, then you might want to check your pulse. So I'm just going to share a screen here, and we can get going. So everyone just check your pulse and watch this.
Robertson gets the penalty. The crowd is going wild. Robertson left again and copped a second penalty. All Gilmore has to do is hoist his headsail, turn downwind, and cross the line. This isn't quite over yet, actually. Robertson has already gotten rid of one penalty. Now he's tacked and he's going to get rid of the second penalty. If it gets shed, which I think it just was, now he puts his bow down. The penalty is clear. Phil Robertson has won the race, and the umpire gets slammed in between the boats. Unbelievable. And they're not done yet. A blue flag penalty past the finish line. Gilmore gets the penalty and Robertson gets the race. We're into the next precinct.
So that really fires me up about match racing, and that's why sort of I got into the sport, about just sort of the high octane racing. But that's all for now, and I'll hand it back over to you, Bridget.
Thanks, Pearson. So to start off, I want each of our panelists to talk about how you first got into match racing and maybe what other type of sailing you did before match racing that might have brought you to match racing. So Pearson, why don't you go first?
Thanks, Bridget. Well, what really got into match racing was a friend of mine, and thank you to him for getting really into it. And match racing has become a huge part of my life. And I was really sort of he got me into it, but it was the close contact and high octane racing that really got me hooked and sort of got me that match racing bug, as Dave Perry likes to describe. And I sort of heard about Oak Cliff through the grapevine and just through the events that they sort of held. And shortly after college, I put together a ragtag group of college friends, and we just sort of set out and chose a grade 3 that weekend. And I almost couldn't put a crew together, and I almost bailed out, and the guys at Oak Cliff convinced me to sort of come by, and they'll help me make it happen. And now I love sailing at Oak Cliff. Oak Cliff hosts 40% of all of our match racing events in the US, and we thank them so much for that. And they put on a great program, and they have all sort of clinigatas there. Dave Perry hosts a lot of sort of clinics and regattas combined at Oak Cliff all the time. So I definitely recommend Oak Cliff for anyone that is sort of looking into getting into match racing as well.
Great, thank you. Nicole, what about you? How did you first find yourself on a match race course?
I came to match racing a little bit later than Pearson did in his life. I graduated from college, and I was teaching and coaching a bunch of sailing, teaching high school history. And my main racing was in the lightning class, which I really loved that class, had a lot of fun crewing for different teams. And about 10 years into teaching, I started to get the itch to get into some kind of high performance racing again. I jumped back into the 470, and I was playing in the 470 a little bit as the 2008 quadrennium was closing, and the new quadrennium, which announced that women's match racing was going to be a class in the 2012 London Games. And so match racing was on the minds of a lot of really good women sailors in the country. And there were a lot of opportunities to learn and events going on. And it was sort of high enthusiasm, and I got swept up into that and had the opportunity to crew for a bunch of really good sailors who were sort of in the midst of deciding whether they wanted to go for the games. And so we were learning and playing at a really high level. And I was really fortunate to get an opportunity to do a clinic with Debbie Capozzi. I did the Miami OCR regatta with Sally Barkow, and Sandy Hayes took me to Sweden for the Match Cup, and then to Long Beach for the Mayor's Cup. And the events were super fun, and I was learning a ton, and like all the intensity of racing was right there on the boat with you. And I just I'm still doing it, so it's pretty fun.
You were hooked.
Yeah.
Awesome. Liz, so you talked a lot about your achievements, but how did you first get into match racing?
Yeah, I guess I always sailed keel boats, and then my first opportunity for match racing was I got invited by Don Riley to go and sail the Santa Maria Cup in Annapolis. At the time, it was one of the only 2 grade 1 women's match racing events in the US, really high level match racing and a ton of fun. And I went there, crewed, all sorts of great stuff, and everything Nicole's saying, the action, the adrenaline, and Pearson said, just how much fun it is to go out and have the cerebral part of it, the physical part of it, all of that action, all in a 20-minute race. And then you get a drink of water and you go out and do it again. And then you do it again. And you get, 10 races in a day. And then you get to go to the bar, and you don't have to worry about going to the room. So that part of it, and you could go have fun every day, go out there, have a great time, and then get back into it. I just loved it. And so, I mean, I got hooked. I love the adrenaline. I love the cerebral part of it, the thinking, the chess game on the water, all of that. Luckily for me, that led me to join Dawn's America's Cup team with America True and go to New Zealand, get involved in the 2000 Cup. So, I came back from that and was determined that I wanted to be a skipper. So then I started skippering when I came home and put together a team, just as Pearson said, put together a team, go to a grade 3 event, and it's so much fun to go and do this. And I just kept doing it. I still crew for people. I've crewed for Nicole, and she's crewed for me, I think. And we've sailed together, sailed against each other, and keep doing it. As the years have gone on, I've gone off to get more on the administration end of it, but it's just such a fantastic game, and I just love it. And I love teaching it, and I just love getting more people involved in it.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. This is another question for all of you. So you talked about why match racing has been important for your sailing career and some of your biggest achievements. So Nicole, maybe you can talk about why match racing has been important for your sailing career, your biggest achievement, just something that really stands out that match racing has given you.
Well, it certainly is fun to win. And the few times that my team and I have managed to pull it all together and run through an event and come out on top has been, some of those memories are, I'll take them to the grave with me. They're amazing. And on the same end of that, there are events that I don't even remember how the overall scores were, because some of the races themselves, well, that's not true. You always remember that, but some of the races themselves are so close and so intense, and you remember like an individual maneuver that made or broke the race and maybe even the regatta. So it's really full of some special memories. I would say, like, going all the way to Vladivostok, Russia to sail in the Nations Cup and duking it out with Pauline Courtois from France in the finals there was kind of a great place to win. Unfortunately, she came in 2019 and took it back in my home waters a couple years ago, but that's racing. But I would say, like, in terms of what I take away from match racing, probably more than anything else, is the exercise in team building and team effort and the leadership that I need to take to just even consider doing an event and trying to assemble the right people and get ourselves prepared, get ourselves there, adapt to a new kind of boat. That all those challenges, including the game we play on the water, is a tremendous exercise in teamwork and leadership. And you'd say that about a lot of things in life, and match racing is a really fun place to exercise all that.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. I totally agree. Pearson, for you, why has match racing been important for your sailing career? Obviously, you were a successful college sailor. So what has match racing mean for you since graduating from college?
I think I've just, like, I can't wait every summer for all the weekends, and I love sitting in the winter and sort of planning out the full schedule of match racing. And I just the week in and week out, just sort of like going out there and getting out with your best friends and getting out to share the field of battle out there. It's just something magical. I mean, what really sort of comes to mind was when we were in the 2018 Prince of Wales finals, when we went down. We took two losses right off the bat, and best of 5, and just being able to rally 3 straight and having that euphoric moment afterwards was just something special. And my buddy is like, screaming next to me in his wingtip shoes, and And you can't, that's like a story that I'll have forever. And it was just sort of those moments are what you live and die by.
Totally. Liz, do you have anything to add about how match racing has been important for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, match racing pretty much has defined my adult life, I think. Where, the biggest achievements, winning a world championship obviously has to be right up there. It launched a lot of different opportunities. It launched, a fancy new watch I got to wear by winning the Rolex, and also launched a feeling in me that I needed to give back and become an ambassador for the sport. And so for me, it really did, mold my whole adult life. Obviously, another important thing that Nicole brought up earlier was how positive it was to get women's match racing into the 2012 Olympics and to give so many sailors the opportunity to compete at the high level. I took that on as a task and worked hard at it with a lot of other people, but it was really felt like an incredible accomplishment. And to hear Nicole this many years later, even though she didn't go to the games, she was brought along on that wave. And I thought that was really important. And so an important part of my life. Another
Very cool.
was able to introduce match racing to sailors. So to hear Pearson say, the first time he went, he got addicted. And to hear the same with Nicole going to a clinic. And I love just seeing the aha moments where you have somebody who says, I just can't, there's no way, I'm not going to like match racing. One of my favorite is Pauline Dowell, a blind sailor from Boston. She said, there's no way I'm going to like match racing. I'm a fleet racer and you're never going to convince me. And now she is just like dripping. She can't wait to go match racing and loves it. So convincing someone who's adamant they're not going to be a match racer, and then to see them just totally converted and then grow totally addicted to it, to me is just a fantastic feeling. And I know that Dave Perry is another one who shares that feeling, that watching people come into the sport is fantastic. And so being here tonight for that reason, how do we get more people into the sport so we can go out and have more fun?
Yeah, it's definitely a theme that once you start match racing, it becomes a part of your life and you never want to stop.
Once you try it, you can't stop.
It's a drug.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so this next question is for Nicole. So how has match racing translated into other types of sailing for you, Nicole?
Oh, without a doubt, I am a stronger boat-on-boat tactician. Learning fleet racing and team racing you have to be sometimes called back to the big picture, but when you need to make a decision about how to position yourself regarding another boat so that you'll advance your overall strategy, match racing really prepares you for tactical situations like that. And it also, it does translate not just to fleet racing, but team racing. I've had an opportunity to team race more recently since college, and it built on the fact that my teammates knew that I could address the boat on boat matching that goes on in team racing. And like I said, they can call to me when it's time to let loose, because in match racing, you generally don't. So, but I would say that the third thing I take is learning. I mean, you have to learn this in all sailing, but in match racing, you really need to learn to roll with it. You need to roll with things that don't go well. You need to deal with the fact that you may have lost control of a race. You have to deal with the fact that you lost a race, and then you have to reset quickly and play to the advantages that you might have to get back in it, or just wipe it away and go forward and get the next victory. It really drives that home, helps you tame your ego and kind of stay in the fight.
Definitely. And that's such an important lesson for all types of sailing, not just match racing. I think every college coach wishes they could have their sailors forget a bad race instantly.
Yeah, short memories are key.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Once the race is over, it doesn't matter. On to the next one. Okay, so Liz, what is the coolest place that match racing has taken you?
You know, that's kind of an impossible question because there are so many cool places that we got to go. But what's great about match racing for me is that you can go to a lot of cool places and all you need is a plane ticket and a life jacket. When you get there, the boats are there and all you have to do is show up and sail. So where did I go? I mean, all around the States, every region, we've done some match racing. Seattle, San Francisco, San Diego, across Texas, Austin, Fort Worth, New Orleans, St. Pete, Miami, Annapolis, New York, Newport, Detroit, Chicago, and one of my favorites, Sheboygan, Wisconsin. But around the world, we've been, again, all over. Started Bermuda, the BVI's, U.S. Virgin Islands, Mexico, El Salvador, Canada, Korea, China, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Oman, Slovenia,
Wow.
France, Spain, England, Scotland, Ireland, Finland, Denmark.
All right, we get it, Liz. You've been everywhere.
Russia.
Get
No, it's just so cool. How do you pick the best? You can't pick the coolest spot. They're all totally cool. So what is it that's true? But what is true is that you go there, you make friends everywhere, and you have a common bond that keeps the world really small. So I named a whole ton of places, but what you do end up with are like lifelong friends. I mean, you hear what Nicole said about meeting Pauline Courtois in Vladivostok, racing her again in San Francisco, and then racing against her again in Europe. So, it's a small world and we've got those connections. And you have a bed to sleep in anytime you go to any of those places. So I won't name it's a coolest one. They're all really darn cool.
Liz,
yeah, and I think oh, go ahead, Pearson.
No, I was just gonna say, Liz, you bring up a great point that out of college, most kids out of college don't own their own boats to go race on, and so match racing is such a perfect outlet for those college kids who just want to immediately, translate, their college experience to just walking down the dock and being able to hop in an FJ or a 420, and match racing is the same way. Oak Cliff has 12 or some, match 40s, and so it's the same idea, and that was also another reason what drew me to match racing. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, for all the keelboat owners listening, you can race around the world and a boat is just there for you. Okay, so Pearson, as a former college sailor, you obviously know a lot of people who sail. So when you first started putting your match race team together, how did you pick people to sail with? How were you like, okay, this is the group I'm aiming for?
Yeah. So, I mean, in college, you sail 2-person boats, usually, almost always, about 95% of the time. And those are either crews or skippers. And out of college, I really looked for people that were team players. And the reason for that is you can't put five skippers or 6 skippers on a boat. It's just not going to work. And so you need to have people that are willing to work together and willing to sort of, not only have the skills and, be the right size and all that, but, also just from, be willing to own their own domain in the boat and be willing to work well within a team. And so that's what my number one goal out of college was when I was trying to organize my own team. And it took a lot of time for me. It wasn't like I found the right people immediately. It's definitely, it takes a little bit of trial and error, and I've enjoyed everyone I've sailed with. But it's definitely, you got to find the right people, and teams change all the time.
Definitely. Okay, so we're talking about picking your team. So once you have your team set, how do you pick events to go to? So Pearson, why don't you answer this first, and then Nicole, since you're on the West Coast, you can talk about how you pick events out west to go to.
Sure. So I think when you're first starting out, you need to figure out what your goal is. What are you trying to achieve? For me, that was when I first started. Was I wanted to win the match racing championship. That was my goal. And I had played with, it took me 2 summers to just sort of like learn how to sail a keelboat and learn how to match race a keelboat. And people forget that a lot of match racing is boat handling and just being able to sail around the course. It's not just all, tactics and, boat on boat, because you got to be close to match race and to sort of do a lot of the close situations, close combat. And so, it took me a while to learn that. But once I sort of really got started, I set a goal for I wanted to sort of win the Prince of Wales. And I did. And at that year, when I set that goal, all the event that it was going to be at Oak Cliff. So I pretty much sailed every event at Oak Cliff that summer. And I didn't care what level it was. I was sailing grade 5s, grade 4s, grade 3s, every single one. It was in the beginning. It's the case where quantity over quality is where you want to be.
Definitely. Nicole, what about you? When you were first starting out, how did you pick and choose which events to go to?
I agree that you really want to practice match racing as much as possible. And the best practice is doing events. So, there are a lot of factors that go into how many events you can do, what's available, what your resources are, your work schedule, things like that. And so for like, if I were starting right now, the first thing I would do would be to look for local events first. And I would also look for like lower grade level events. Match racing events are graded 1 to 5, with 1 being like top level competition typically, and grade 5 being sort of entry level. However, you shouldn't let that be a limitation to you. It just so happens that grade 4s and 5s often have coaching elements incorporated into them, clinigatas, and you have an opportunity to race against people who might be relatively new as well. And the competition is a little bit closer. For me, out on the West Coast, there are at least 1 Clinigata at the San Diego Yacht Club. There's a bunch of stuff going on at the Cal Yacht Club. At St. Francis Yacht Club, we try to run an annual Clinigata. And then there is a series called the California Dreamin' Series, which it's 3 grade 3 events, but they're predominantly grade 3 because of the distances traveled and because we have the whole west coast of the United States to help bring people from. We're able to get them to a grade 3 level. However, the California Dreamin' Series has been a way for sailors to sort of slingshot into the game, and they get to do 3 events. When you do events, you start to accumulate ranking points, which helps you with this invitation system. Now, some of that might have sounded a little bit intimidating. Match racing is, it's sort of resource intensive because you're using borrowed boats and there's umpire teams involved. So in order to go to an event, you actually need to usually request an invitation. You shouldn't take that as, oh, I don't have anything to give. I'm new to match racing. How can I possibly get a spot? You put down all of the things that you have in your kit. I mean, if you're a college All-American, or if you're, a junior Sabbath champion, or whatever you've done, you let people know, and you just keep hammering, just keep knocking at the door. You can't get into match racing until you apply to a lot of events and get your invitations. Once you get in there, you're gonna, again, like you catch the bug, people will know you are out there, and they're going to know that you're eager, and they're going to open the door for you. So for me out here, those are the events that I look to. But we've had people from California take their team that they're trying to build and train with, and their big event of the year could be to fly to spend some time in New York, do like a long weekend, and do a 3-day Klinigata at Oak Cliff in the Match 40s. So and that could be like a transforming experience in your game.
Yeah, Bridget, I just want to sort of add to that. Thank you so much, Nicole. That was awesome. Dave Perry hosts a bunch of these North U clinics, and they're all over the country, and he does them, I think, in every different region of the United States. And those were incredibly helpful for when I was first starting out. And he gives you a full playbook. You're saying, I don't know how to start. I don't even know how the mechanics of this silly sport works, and Dave breaks it down like into a science, and there's nothing like a good old Dave Perry Klinigata. Yep, there it is. Nicole's got it right there.
There it is.
Regular reading.
Yeah. Yeah, Nicole didn't even let it without of her arm's reach.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to reiterate Nicole's point that, there's the DVD. Requesting an invitation should not be a deterrent. I remember when I just graduated high school and I was applying to a grade 3 Klinigata, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get into this. And I did, and it was a Dave Perry Klinigata, and I'm so glad I did it.
Before you move on, Bridget, this is a good place for us to plug the U.S. Match Race Championship Qualifier Series. A lot of the grade 3, 4 events a lot of the racing we do around the country are the regionally based qualifiers for getting into the U.S. Match Racing Championship finals in the fall for the Prince of Wales Cup. Try to take Pearson's trophy away from him. And those qualifier events are you can shop venues. You're not tied to where you live, and there's like, I don't know how many there are, 6, 7, or 8.
There's 8 events, or 7, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are great events to start. You might be like, why would I jump into the National Championship Series? Well, that's some of the best racing we have going on. So
absolutely. And you can find a link in that either in the chat, or I think we may share it after the discussion here. But the request
so we're gonna have a request for an invitation for those events. So those are usually grade 3 events, and they're definitely a good place to get match racing. The North U playbook has also been linked in the YouTube, which Nicole showed a little bit ago, and that is a great place to start for a match racing playbook if you're looking to get into match racing or have been match racing for some time. Another thing that the U.S. Match Racing Committee is trying to do this year is promote grade 4s and 5s across the country. Obviously, because of COVID, people aren't traveling as much, so we want more lower grade regattas and really get people match racing. So if you or your yacht club wants to put on one of those grade 4s or 5s, and you have a fleet of Sonars or J22s or Ideal 18s, definitely go for it. And we are here as resources for that.
And if you want to get Dave Perry to come to those and maybe do a Klinigata or clinic at your club, he's always open to those opportunities. And there's plenty of opportunities to do that. And Dave loves to travel when he can and loves to go and teach. And so it'd be great to get him involved, and he could be contacted through Pearson and through the Match Racing Committee.
Absolutely.
So going off of that, Liz, how do you get your yacht club or sailing center to help support match racing? And we also have a question from a viewer about the benefits of having a match race program at your yacht club.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's sort of a 2-part question. So lots of clubs already have some match racing going on, like Nicole's club, St. Francis, And Pearson mentioned Oak Cliff. And those clubs have some match racing going on, but as I've seen in the past, sometimes clubs will have match racing going on and then it'll sort of go away. So what we need to do is support those clubs that already have the match racing going on. So they have some infrastructure, they have some enthusiasm amongst the membership. So if we want those clubs to keep doing match racing, we need to support them and help keep it going. So I think let's get Nicole maybe to answer that question about what does the yacht club do? How does the yacht club benefit from having a fleet? Because I think she's fresh from the experience at St. Francis. And then I'll go on with the rest of it.
Sure. So St. Francis has, in 2011, they acquired a fleet of matched J22s. They have 10 matched J22s. And this is like a big capital investment that the club made to build a team racing and match racing program around. And there are all kinds of challenges to doing that, and there are ways around it. There are one design fleets where members they come up with a way to share boats or to pool the resources so that they can get match racing and team racing programs going. There's a great model for that in Marblehead, where they have sonars sort of scattered around different yacht clubs and different owners. But all that aside, the benefits of building match and team race program at your club with the resources that you can muster are huge. We live in a time where there's been a big upheaval in the economy, and there's a lot of young people who really latch onto the shared economy. And even though they come out of college and they start their careers, and they're not in the market to buy a boat, they might not ever buy a boat. And the having a fleet of boats available to them so that they can continue to practice their sport at a high level of competition has been really rewarding to the club in terms of membership outreach. And the secondary benefit is that watching those, getting an influx of those talented sailors and watching them play the game, these high disciplines, has trickled into the interests of our broader membership to learn those disciplines if they're practiced sailors already, or to just get into racing. And we have this platform now to create learn to sail, learn to match race, learn to team race programs. And all of that is huge engagement. And it's a huge attraction for people who are already members and people who might become members. So I think it's match racing can create other kinds of bugs that are beneficial in a much broader sense.
If you build it, they will come, right, Nicole?
That's right. That's right, Pearson.
And that sort of takes me to the next part of that, which is how do you get match racing going in a place that doesn't already have it? And I always think you just need a few things. One is you need a spark plug. And that's not the little thing that's in your car, but it's the person or a couple of people. So I can name any number of yacht clubs that started match racing, and you can always go back to that one person. Fort Worth Boat Club, it's Karen Smith. In Annapolis, it's Jeff and Sharon Borland. And you've got these spark plugs who keep it going. And so you get that one person, and then you help them. And you make sure that you bring the enthusiasm as the sailors, and you need a few sailors, you need a few boats, you need a few marks. And that's really, you don't need much more than that to get match racing started. To keep it going and get to the next level where you're going to start doing some racing, you might need a little bit more. An example that actually led to the St. Francis Yacht Club purchasing that fleet of boats was Wednesday night racing out of Kristen Lane's house in Tiburon. They bought a couple of J22s. They had a motorboat. They had some hippity hops. And then we'd go out. People would sign up on Facebook. There were no organized teams. Whoever showed up got put on a boat, whether they umpired, whether they did the race committee, whether they sailed. Everybody rotated around. And then afterwards, we came into the living room and we ate and drank and had a debrief. So here's the living room in their house, and there's a much younger Liz doing a chalk talk. So when I was in town, I'd go down and do chalk talks with them. We talked through the rules, but it was just a group of people coming together and having fun. So that was one example. And then another example in Annapolis, looks fancy, Annapolis Mattress Center, but it was really just a grassroots group of people. They formed an organization. They had a few cheerleaders. There was also Jeff Rydell along with the other Jeff. And then they just started promoting match racing in the area. Dave and I went down and we did a clinicata down there. And then you got cooperation with the different clubs. Each of the clubs had a couple of boats, and then they started small with borrowed boats, and then it grew into a regular Monday night match racing series going on from there. Long Beach Yacht Club did another similar thing. They bought a couple of old beat up soul lanes. Scotty Dixon fixed them up. They'd have chalk talks, and then they'd do on the water racing literally right off the dock with club owned soul lanes. There were individual sailors would show up, same sort of thing as the Wednesday night. You got pooled together, put together, thrown out on the water. They rotated through the sailing and umpiring a race committee. It was all really low cost. It was members, non-members, everybody. And now they have a whole fleet of soul lanes. I think they've got 8 of them now, and they're doing regular racing, mostly match racing, but some team racing as well. We don't all hate team racers, but so lots of different opportunities in that regard.
Thanks, Liz. So actually off of that, we have a question from a viewer, and I think I know your answer based on the presentation, but would you say it's easy for a yacht club to host like a grade 4, grade 5, and a low level match race event?
Very easy. And especially if you're in an area, I see that question is coming from Bristol, Rhode Island. There are so many resources in the Rhode Island area. Umpires who want to come out. Umpires, one thing about umpires, as you're going to learn later in the seminar in a couple of weeks, is umpires love to talk about match racing. And they love to come out and umpire. So getting them out there. So definitely easy to do. There's some really good resources, again, on the US Sailing Match Racing page on how to start a match race. And then the other resources are the members of the US Sailing Match Racing Committee. And all of them want to talk about match racing and want to help you get started. So yeah, to me, it's really easy to get going. And you don't need to be, the world-class match racing capital of the world to do it. You can have any club can do it. And it can be the Wednesday night races. I mean, I have a mooring in Bristol, and I sit there and watch them go out on whatever night it is and on the J22s and go out and have fun. So easy to mix that up and make it match racing.
Yeah, and if you have questions beyond what's on the US Sailing website about running a match race, Pearson will be able to direct you whoever on the match race committee you need to go to for that, I think.
Absolutely.
So off of that, Liz, how do you get sponsored by your yacht club, whether it's through a competition fund or whatever it may be?
Yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes if you do have to do a lot of traveling for this match racing, can be not the cheapest thing in the world, but many clubs and regional sailing organizations are really willing to help out sailors who want to travel outside their areas. It's great for the clubs to get their brand out in different areas of the world. And so over the years, I've been pretty fortunate in that regard. For example, in San Francisco Bay Area, there are at least 4 or 5 yacht clubs that have associated foundations that will throw their support behind sailors and help them out. You apply for a grant to those clubs, and then they'll help you out. You give them a budget, and you be honest and say what it's going to cost you and what you're going to pay out of your pocket. Don't expect them to cover everything, but they're willing to help you. They'll often help with some of your travel expenses and some of your entry fees and things like that. And in other areas, there are regional organizations like in the Midwest, the Inland Lake, I can say that, Inland Lakes Yachting Association. They definitely support their sailors, especially for traveling outside the area. And you don't have to feel like you have to ask only your club. Most of these foundations are obligated by the IRS to support people who are not their members. So remember that. Even though I'm not a member of Nicole's Yacht Club, I have never hesitated to ask their Yacht Club's foundation for money. And they sort of have to give it to me. So it's pretty cool. And you won't get the money if you don't ask for it. So don't be shy, build up your resume, make your resume look good, as Nicole said when entering, requesting an invitation. Build on those experiences you have and all the experiences of your whole team, not just the skipper, but the whole crew, and show, yeah, we're really good and we're going to go represent the area. So definitely don't be shy. You have to, some people don't like to toot their own horn, but this is something you have to toot your own horn for. And sometimes these foundations will also let you hold fundraisers. So you can have people make donations to them, and then they'll later let you tap into the funds. So definitely you can get mom and pop's friends to make a donation to the local foundation. And then the foundation usually sees that if you've gotten some donations to come in, they're definitely more willing to help you out.
That's such a great point, Liz, about asking around to other yacht clubs. And I think that'll help a lot of people. Nicole and Pearson, you guys haven't had the same luck with sponsorship. So how do you and your team afford busy match racing schedules that take up several weekends of the summer?
Well, first of all, I do have to say that I've been lucky enough to be supported with some entry fees and some of my big travel excursions like the Vladivostok one, to get some support from the St. Francis Sailing Foundation. And, while that doesn't go all the way towards covering expenses, it's an incredible thing to have sort of people rooting for you and supporting you in those endeavors. But, there are some real challenges to running a your own sailing team. And, it's not expected that it's necessarily all going to fall on your shoulders as the skipper. I think I've been fortunate that the network of friends and teammates that I've built over the past few years, they recognize that, plane tickets and housing costs and food, they're doing it for themselves too. And so usually when I like to lay out the events I'd like to do over the course of a year, and I send it to my core teammates, and I'm very realistic about the fact that they work and they might not necessarily be able to do it all. So I often have to cast a wider net. I love the fact that my team expands beyond those core members, and I feel very, very close to all the people that I sail with. Sometimes those sailors might actually live in the venue that I am heading to, so I can garner some local knowledge as well when I put that team together. But I'm usually really straight with what I'm willing to cover, whether I'm going to look for local housing with families, or if we're going to pay to stay in hotels, and what I'm expecting them to pay in terms of their own expenses. And, while I would love to cover it all, they recognize that it's very much part of the team effort to get out there. And it makes it a team effort really to just even get there. And I really appreciate them when they're getting the spinnaker down after we've been taken past the ley line, because I know that they love it as much as me. So that's sort of sharing the costs and looking for some support when I can. and then making sure that I look for creative ways to defray costs, like staying with friends and family in the places that we race.
Yeah, that's a huge part of match
That's
racing.
huge.
And what's a lot of fun about it is that almost all the match racing events I go to, they give you places to stay and you get to stay with families. And those families become serious lifelong friends. I mean, the Borland's house in Annapolis became, my East Coast home for a long time because every year I'd go back to the same regatta and stay with Jeff and Sharon. And the same thing happens in these events in Sweden, great stuff to be able to have that community.
I can't tell you how many fun nights I've had in that Oak Cliff bunkhouse. At times a bit blurry, but they were really fun. And that, that's part of the magic. Is just sort of going out and meeting people, and sometimes you get housed. And, but yeah, sort of how do I set up the cost, and sort of how do I do that burden? Well, I sort of make it clear with all my guys, and all of us are paper pushers during the week, and we're weekend warriors Saturday and Sunday, and we all have jobs. And that's all, we all have the same goal at that point. And I'm really clear with each other. But what I try to make it, all the logistics and everything, I try to do all that sort of stuff on the back end so that my teammates, my crewmates don't have to think about it at all. So all that they really have to do is just sort of show up and jump on the boat. I try to make it as easy as possible for them. The other thing is I try to make it as fun as possible for them. So I keep them coming back. And sort of, we'll plan like a night activity, or, we'll do something after racing. And because the whole reason that I'm still in this is because it's fun. And we keep it that way. We keep it fun. And, a lot of times my teammates make more money than I do. And so, but just being clear with your teammates and, trying to lower the cost as much as possible and get creative.
Great, thank you. Those are great insights about how to keep your costs down as a team. So I think we have time for 2 more questions. The next question is, how do you practice match racing on your own, or if you just have one friend? So Liz, if you could answer that, especially during COVID times, people might only have, 2 or 3 other people they can go sailing with and one boat. So
that's the great thing about match racing is you only need one other boat. And so it makes it easy to do. And you don't need to practice. Your fleet racing starts with 40 boats. Well, those opportunities aren't always available, but practice your match racing with one other boat it is. When I first came back from New Zealand and decided I wanted to be a skipper, an example of this is my husband and I, we each borrowed a bite dinghy, and we went out, and I just wanted to keep my head fresh and start thinking about match racing. So we just, got a couple of Clorox bottles, weights, threw them in the water, and then there we were able to set up our own match race start. And, my poor husband victim in the bite, but, so if you have a few more people, you can do it in dinghies. I prefer it in a keel boat, but you can just go out and do it really easily. And as Pearson said earlier, that a huge part of match racing is boat handling. So if you can only get one boat and you want to go out practice match racing, you can still do it. If you could get your housekeeping in order, Dave Dellenbaugh has a great one of his newsletters about match racing, and the first thing in it is get your own housekeeping in order, and then you can use your boat handling as a weapon. So going out and practicing those mark roundings, tacks. You do more tacks in a day in match racing than you do in a whole summer of fleet racing. So go out and practice those tacks. So go out and practice on your own. It's really easy to do. So if you've got your household, COVID compliant household, go out. Nicole's got, Bruce and the J105 and their crew, and they can go out and practice. You can do your boat handling practice with one boat. And if you're lucky, you can get another boat out there, throw 2 buoys in the water, and off you go, and you've got a match race. So I think it's one of the best things to do during COVID times.
My teammates, they think one of our more formidable opponents is the mystery boat. We go out and practice on our own, and I just imagine what the other boat's doing.
Your
I think
imaginary friend. You just look like a total psycho. Yeah.
the thing also is that for almost a lot of events also give you a practice day beforehand. And so that's just a free day for you to go sailing and on a really cool boat a lot of times. How many days do you get to sail match 40? You know? And so going to the regatta and getting your guys willing to commit that extra Friday or so, like before the Saturday of racing is a free day of practice. And so go out there and, you know, take a day off and go practice. And so you're ready for Saturday, Sunday.
Definitely. And actually, in the first few pages of that Northview playbook that has been linked and that we showed earlier, there are drills that you can do either on your own or with a partner. So that is a great resource if you never match raced before, but you love sailing and you want to get into it. There are some drills in there for you.
And that same way,
well,
thinking about that before you split off, Bridget, that all the seminars that Dave Perry did last spring during the beginning of the COVID lockdown, all those videos of all those sessions are available online. So the link is on the USALA Match Racing website. So go watch those if you're at all interested in match racing. And again, you're going to get infected by Dave's enthusiasm, and it's great. And so there's so many opportunities to go and do that. And then that video I was holding up earlier, you know, the video, yay. And then I saw that we had a chat comment from Henry Menon, one of my great mentors. He also wrote one of the first books, which the predecessor in essence to what we're doing with Dave Perry's playbook and getting involved in match racing. So yeah, let's go out and do it. There are a lot of things you can do, and then tap any of us and we'll go out sailing with you.
Yeah, and another great thing to sign up for is the dial-up. It's linked also in the chat with our other resources. That's a newsletter Dave Perry puts out once a month. It has match racing moves in it. It has information about upcoming events across the country, and you kind of get a peek into Dave Perry's brain, which is nice. So definitely check that out. Liz, Nicole, Pearson, do you guys have anything to add before we wrap it up here?
I would just
want to
encourage.
go out match racing right now. Now
That's
you're going
right.
to be all psyched. I'm
I'm
really
itching.
up for it. When are we going to get our chance? Nicole, let's go. What are you doing this weekend?
Ready? I'll meet you in the middle of the bay.
Perfect. I'm going to bring a 50. What are you going to bring?
J105.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to this Starboard Portal. There will be 2 more match racing Starboard Portals in the weeks to come, and we hope all this information was helpful. And like Liz said, like we hope you get on the water and get match racing soon. So thank you everyone for tuning in.
Excellent. Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.